The fourth season of the show begins with the acting director of the school looking at the panels of every student of Class 2. He gathers all the information and hands it over to a student who is wearing a hood to conceal his face. The acting director, Tokunari Tsukishiro, tells the student that he has only one goal set for him after getting into the school, and that is to somehow expel the formidable Kiyotaka Ayanokoji and have him return to the White Room as soon as possible. The young student who will be enrolling in the Tokyo Metropolitan Advanced Nurturing School is clearly agitated at even hearing the name of Ayanokoji in front of him. It's clear that this person is driven by something more than just a sense of duty to achieve his mission. He's also from the White Room, and it's clear that he has a personal grudge. He accepts the task and leaves the room. Tsukishiro is left wondering how things will pan out in a battle of wits between two former students of the White Room. Ayanokoji may have been the golden boy of the White Room, but given the circumstances, his new foe has the upper hand. Meanwhile, Class D is ready for their second year at the school that has, to this date, tried its best to expel every last one of them. Yet despite the odds, they behave like regular students waiting for their teacher to begin their first class of the second year. Everyone takes note of Horikita's new short hair, particularly Sudo and Kushida. This makes sense, as Kushida keeps an eye on Horikita all the time because of her jealousy, and Sudo has a massive crush on Horikita. Even though she's changed a lot since she's come to terms with her older brother, Horikita still chooses to maintain her dismissive behavior and tells the two of them that it's nothing special for someone to have a hair change. However, it does mean that she has found a new resolve to take on any future challenges more effectively and efficiently. Eventually, the homeroom teacher, Chabashira, comes to class, and everyone takes their seat. She's wearing her usual poker face with a depressing look paired with a hot figure that suits her just fine. However, as usual, she brings bad news to the class and tells everyone to download an official app of the school. The name of the app is Overall Ability, and its sole function is to rank different aspects of a student like sports, academic performance, and so on. However, it just doesn't stop there. Students can not only use the app to see their own ranks, but also see the rank of every other student on the campus. This opens room for potential discrimination, mimicking society in the real world. Students with higher ranks might have more use, so they'd have an easier time making friends, while the lower ranks might be considered as outcasts. This system also opens room for social exchange, as two different students with different strong suits can help each other overcome their weaknesses. However, the bad news just doesn't end there. Chabashira also announces a special exam for class. She tells them that in the upcoming exam, everyone in the class will have a partner up with one student from Class 1. The two individuals who partner up will be judged together on the exam. This means that if one of them scores high on the exam and the other fails, their overall score could save both of them. The one huge catch is that the system has made it clear through the Overall Ability app just how competent each individual is when it comes to giving exams. So even though a dull student can get away with a mediocre score by partnering up with a bright student, the bright student has no motive of teaming up with someone with a bad track record. Also, Chabashira makes it clear that anyone who fails to partner up with someone by the time of the exam, the school will randomly partner them with someone, and they will receive a penalty of 5%. Sudo has already become a ball of nerves, considering he probably has the worst possible academics, and is wondering if someone will even partner up with him. Eventually, yet another class ends with no lecture. Seriously, the jobs of the teachers in this anime are a dream job. Just take out all your frustrations and rattle the students with bad news, and you get paid for it. Anyway, I digress. After the class ends, everyone begins speculating about what to do for the upcoming exam. Horikita proposes the obvious, and that it's best to pair weak students of this class with academically strong students of Class 1. How that's going to happen is the real question. Meanwhile, Ayanokoji is sitting separately from everyone, as usual, and is engaged in two battles at once. He knows very well that an assassin from the White Room is here to get him expelled somehow. The worst possible thing Ayanokoji can do is be paired with him for the upcoming exam. In that case, all the intruder would have to do is fail his exam intentionally, and that would mean expulsion for both him and Ayanokoji. This is literally suicide bombing. Given the circumstances, it wouldn't be far-fetched to say that this whole exam is a setup to simply have Ayana Koji expelled from the school. However, that would be speculation without grounded evidence for the time being. Horikita has a word with Ayana Koji outside, and they plan on finding a way to pair their weak students with the bright prospects of Class 1. One method would be to bribe the students of Class 1 with private points. These are the points they use to buy things around the campus, so it's literally bribing them with money. However, even if they gather all the reserves of the entire class, they might not be able to meet the demands of the cream of the crop. Chances are other classes are thinking the same thing for their weak students. The money game will be won by the class with the highest fund, as they'll be the highest bidder. Later that day, Ayana Koji, Horikita, and Shido hang around the campus and come across Ichinos, who has gathered a group of people from Class 1 and is introducing herself to them. While this may come across as wholesome, the ulterior motive in her move is obvious. She wants everyone in Class 1, regardless of section, to be more comfortable with her and gain their trust that will allow her to pair weak students from her class to strong ones from Class 1. This is a strategy that would work well only if implemented by the likes of Ichinos, as she has a vibrant personality that is designed to let people off their guards and trust her unflinchingly without a second thought. Shido proposes that they should barge in and introduce themselves as well, which would be a major blunder, since the three of them would only look bad in front of Ichinos. The students might lose trust in them even more, given how soft and vibrant Ichinos' personality is. However, Horikita devises a plan to counter Ichinos. She speculates that more than half of the students didn't attend her mixer. Their best bet is to have a talk with those students. Also, another thing that catches their eye is that not a single person from Class 1D has come to the mixer. This could only mean that the entire class is already working together, and a leader has already decided who is showing them the way. They all devise a plan to first head straight to Class 1D in hopes of striking some kind of deal that will allow everyone in their class to succeed in the upcoming exam. On their way, they end up coming across Ryuen from Class C, a former foe that Ayana Koji beat to a pulp not too long ago. However, the fallen lion seems to have regained his sense of pride and is working out a way to gather the best student for the upcoming exam. He begins to leave, giving the three students of Class 2D some horrific advice. According to Ryuen, the first years of the school seem far too calm about this exam. It's not the kind of confidence that stems from delusion, but the kind that comes from awareness. It's highly likely someone has given them information on how to thrive in the school, and striking a deal with them won't be a walk in the park. The three of them head to the classroom of Class 1D, only to find it completely empty. This is nothing short of an ominous behavior from the class. For whatever reason, they seem to be behaving in a well-coordinated fashion. It's clear at this point to the three of them that they won't be able to play the senior card at all. The next day, Ayana Koji opens the app and finds out that 22% of the students have already been paired. For him, it's a matter of protecting himself not only from the school's expulsion system, but also the assassin from the White Room. His biggest fear is being paired up with that wolf in sheep's clothing. Unfortunately, Ayana Koji isn't able to remain aloof in his thoughts for long, as one of his fellow classmen ends up announcing that a couple of students are coming from Class 1D. It's clear from his tone that they aren't coming in peace, and arrogance is to be expected. Everyone heads outside, only to discover two of the representatives of Class 1D standing with their heads held high. One of them appears to be a witty girl going by the name of Nanes, and the other is a brawler going by the name of Hosen. Right off the bat, Hosen shifts the power dynamic to his end, claiming that as members of Class 2D, no one will want to pair with them. Class 1D is their only option, and if they don't get on their knees and beg, he'd just have the entire Class 1D pull out from partnering up with them. It's clear that this man is a leader who's been navigating the movement of Class 1D all along. Hosen claims that this method would hurt them if Class 2D doesn't pair with them, but they don't have much to lose. The first-year students can't get expelled based on their performance in this exam. However, if someone is to fail in this exam from the second year, their expulsion is guaranteed. In other words, they're bound to be more desperate to get partners than first-year students. Pseudo loses his cool and almost gets into a fight with Hosen. However, one of the students breaks it off, and the legendary Ryuen shows up to the scene as well. Turns out, Ryuen and Hosen know each other from outside of the school. They exchange a few high IQ taunts that result in a stalemate. Eventually, Hosen ends up challenging Ryuen to a fight. Showing maturity, Ryuen turns down the fight and walks away. In a display of power, Hosen ends up grabbing one of Ryuen's allies by the neck and lifting her up. This may be to provoke Ryuen further into a fight. Just goes to show how confident he is in his ability to take down Ryuen. However, Ryuen refuses to lose his cool and turns a blind eye to his behavior, appearing to play the rational card. However, this is severely out of character for Ryuen, as usually he's the one imposing violence. It's clear that he wants to refrain from a wild confrontation against Hosen, given his reputation. Amidst this chaos, Nanace catches the attention of Ayano Koji. She had been very observant throughout the entire interaction. The two lock eyes for one final time before going on their separate ways. The second episode begins with the introduction of a new character going by the name of Yagami. Don't worry, it's not like Yagami, it's Yagami Takuya. He's a bright person who recognizes Kushida as soon as he lays eyes on her. She was a senior in middle school. Given Kushida's reputation in middle school, Yagami should be afraid of her instead of being horrified. He talks with Kushida as if she were an old friend and even offers to partner up with her. This doesn't make sense to both Horikita and Ayano Koji, who have seen how much of a witch Kushida can really be. However, the two of them don't pry in Kushida's matter, as it is a fruitless matter. Later that day, Horikita, Ayano Koji, and Sudo continue their hunt to partner up with someone. They realize that every one of the first-year students seems to be having a time of their lives. This is a natural behavior, considering that's what this class did as well when they first got admission in this school. The three of them talk to three other students of Class 1D. They make it clear that they're looking for someone to partner up with Sudo. The three of them have the audacity to straight up tell them that if they want someone to partner up with Sudo, they'll have a hand over 500,000 private points. According to them, they've already received offers from other people who'd be willing to partner up with them, and they don't intend upon giving themselves up for cheap. Doing so will make Hosen angry. The trio find themselves in a tough spot where the demand for bright first-year students is high, and every second-year class is buying one after the other with private points. That a battle they can't take part in, as collectively the second-year Class D has the worst economy. Just as the three of them are having this conversation, a bright young student of Class 1A going by the name of Amasawa makes an appearance. She tells them that she's overheard their dilemma and she can be of assistance to Sudo in the upcoming exam. Her only condition is that she wants Sudo to fight other strong candidates, and if he wins, she'll be his partner, as strong men are her type. Naturally, the three of them decline, but she makes one final proposal, and involves cooking. If Sudo can impress her with a meal, she will partner up with him. Horikita proposes that she can cook in his stead, to which she declines. Suspiciously, she confesses that it will be fine if Ayano Koji can cook in Sudo's stead. She makes the deal and leaves soon after. This leaves them with only the small problem of Ayano Koji's, cooking being one of his only few bad skills. Horikita tells him not to worry, as she has a plan. The next day, Nanace approaches Ayano Koji as he's wandering off alone. She comes off to him as rational and vibrant, but at the same time, Ayano Koji is also skeptical of her nature. She tells Ayano Koji that Hosen's method of approaching the situation is not rational enough. However, he is in total control of Class 1D, and no one would dare question his leadership. Nanace wants to become the leader of Class 1D in hopes of running things more smoothly. She's in no position to be striking deals with another class, but what she can do is arrange for a meeting between Class 2D and Class 1D, and Ayano Koji agrees to it. Meanwhile, Ayano Koji has another job at his end, and it's to cook for Amasawa to get Sudo a partner. He meets up with her, and before the cooking can even begin, the two of them go shopping at Ayano Koji's expense to get some ingredients. After a little shopping, they head straight to Ayano Koji's room, and he begins cooking some Tom Yum Goong at her request. Naturally, he has an earbud attached and is cheering, thanks to the help of Horikita, because he's clueless when it comes to cooking. Eventually, the dish is made and served. Amasawa gives Ayano Koji a pass and tells him that she'll help Sudo out and partner up with him. She even goes as far as to wash the dishes to thank Ayano Koji for the meal and heads home. Naturally, since Ayana Koji has an assassin after him, he has a fair share of skepticism towards a vibrant Amasawa. He fully expects his room to be bugged by her. However, even if that were true, Ayana Koji has no plan of trying to expose the possible scheme. For now, all that matters is that she's not partnering up with him. Meanwhile, Saki Yanaji and her team from Class A of the second year are engaged in a battle against Class C of the second year. The two second-year classes have their eyes set on exactly the same students of the first year they want to partner up with. This leads the two classes to be engaged in a bidding war for the students they want. And the first years will roll with the second-year class that bids the highest offer of private points. Saki Yanaji's followers are worried that Ryuen and his team keep offering higher bids, which would mean that he has amassed high amounts of private points. Saki Yanaji disagrees. According to her, Ryuen is only posing as a threat and driving up the price that he has no intention of paying. He simply wants Saki Yanaji to win the bid war for the student at the price of having her bank account of private points depleted. In other words, Ryuen is not after the Class 1 students, but the private points of Saki Yanaji and other students of Class A in the second year. Meanwhile, Ryuen and his allies are distressed as they're making offers they can't afford to actually pay. Ryuen orders them to make a hefty upfront payment for joining Class C, and the remaining payment will be given to them later. That later will obviously never come. However, this will accomplish one thing. It's the fact that Ryuen will be aware of people who praise money over all else. At the same time, he'll know exactly who values brand power more. They will be the ones to join Class 2A. This knowledge is vital for taking down Class A in the future. At the end of the episode, Ayana Koji and Horikita have a meeting with Nanace. She expresses that collaboration between Class 1D and Class 2D is the best for both of them. Should they ever need help in the future, their second-year seniors would help them. Nanace agrees, but also tells them that Hosen would never accept terms where there is no payment. This puts Horikita and Ayana Koji in a bind. The third episode begins with Nanace talking with Hosen on the phone as she tries to convince him to come into terms with Horikita in front of her. Naturally, being the brute he is, Hosen refuses to listen to rationality and just ends up cutting the call. Later that day, Ayana Koji has nothing better to do, so he actually starts cooking, a recently acquired new skill. He gets a call from his girlfriend Kei, who tells him that there's been only one person who's bought that particular item since the start of April. Someone else tried to buy it, but a girl prevented them from buying it. Ayana Koji asks if she managed to find out who this person is that prevented the transaction, and Kei tells him that the clerk did not know her name. Ayana Koji finds this information to be of help, but it's not really revealed at this point what he's interrogating. However, he does end up planning a small study date with Kei. He invites her tomorrow to his apartment, where they will be studying together. The next day, Horikita tries to pair Kenji up with someone of her liking and asks if Kenji will be okay with it. Naturally, he's a free spirit and refuses the offer. This man has had no problem getting through the toughest of trials the school has thrown at him, and he always appears to be carefree while taking them on. That's something worth admiring, and Horikita doesn't persuade him to comply, as he's also not the kind who will ever change his mind. Later that day, Ayana Koji and Horikita have yet another meeting with Nanace. She tells him that above all else, she wishes to cooperate with Class 2D, as it'll be beneficial to them, but Hosen has no intention of cooperating, and he's controlling everyone in Class 1D with threats and power. Given free choice, she is sure that most of Class 1D will side with Nanace, and her reasonable proposal that guarantees success in the long run. It kind of looks like she's taking the burden of sin off of Class 1D and putting it on one student, and it's Hosen. She desperately doesn't want bad relations with her seniors, so she promises to get Hosen to agree for a meeting with them. Horikita even ends up saying that she trusts her and leaves for her study group. Nanace and Ayana Koji are left sitting alone. The interaction between them is a far cry from a normal one. Out of the blue, Nanace just tells Ayana Koji that she thinks he seems like the kind of person who's wicked in nature. After hearing those words slip from her, Ayana Koji immediately begins to wonder if she is the assassin from the White Room. A person from the White Room would have a tendency to prove their superiority, but somehow this doesn't seem like the kind of thing they would say. She tells him to forget about what she had just said and just leaves. Later that night, the time for the promised study session with Kei arrives, and she sneaks into Ayana Koji's room. She ensures him that no one followed her, as they're keeping their relationship secret for the time being. Ayana Koji, being the heartless monster he is, gets straight down to business and proposes that they begin their study as soon as possible. No room for romance in this dude's heart. Kei obviously needs a little flavor of love in this relationship, and Ayana Koji assures her that he will facilitate that need, but only after studying. The two begin to study, and Kei has Ayana Koji teaching her by sitting beside him just like any couple would. Their romantic moment is spoiled as Kei discovers a long strand of red hair in the room. Clearly, Ayana Koji has been bringing girls into this apartment. This is very obviously Amasawa's hair, the girl for whom Ayana Koji had recently cooked. Just before Kei could go all-out nuclear on Ayana Koji, the doorbell rings, and it turns out to be the devil herself, Amasawa. Kei has her doubts about her relationship with Amasawa, so she tells Ayana Koji to invite her in to interrogate. However, Amasawa is the one who strikes first and asks about Kei's relationship with Ayana Koji. She replies with neither a clear yes nor a clear no, and just tells Amasawa to mind her own business. However, this only confirms to Amasawa that they are indeed in a relationship and are keeping a secret. If they were not in a relationship, the answer to her question would have been a simple no. Amasawa continues to tease Kei and tells her that Ayana Koji is her personal chef and that she's here for her lost hair tie. The man has to step in and clear the air as he's searching for her lost hair tie. He tells Kei that he cooked for her once as a means to get her to partner up with Sudo. Eventually, Amasawa ends up finding her hair tie in the kitchen and leaves, as she feels like a third will stay with them any longer. What's weird in this whole scenario is how hard it was to discover the hair tie. Normally, when someone forgets their things at someone else's place, it's usually left in an open spot and easy to discover. However, Ayana Koji doesn't get suspicious of her and continues on with his night alongside Kei. The next day, Ayana Koji checks the overall ability app to learn that nearly 70% of the students have been paired. Unless he comes up with someone safe to pair up with on his own terms, there's a high chance that the White Room assassin will end up somehow forming a pair with Ayana Koji. At the same time, he has to be critical about who to partner up with. Ayana Koji needs to be absolutely certain that the individual he pairs up with is not the White Room assassin. That is the only criteria he has set. As he's alone with his thoughts, an unexpected guest arrives to accompany the lone warrior. Sakayanagi offers Ayana Koji some help. With her sharp mind, she's deduced that people from the White Room have sent one of their own to get Ayana Koji expelled. Ayana Koji is grateful for the help and even trusts her, but politely refuses, as he wants to forge his own destiny. After she leaves, two students approach Ayana Koji, hoping to partner up with him. Their names are Yuramiya and Tsubaki. According to them, they're just trying to pick partners at random. Naturally, since there's an assassin out there amongst the first years, Ayana Koji can't accept their offers on a whim, without knowing anything about them. He politely declines, but gets their number, saying that he might contact them should he fail to find any partner. During the evening, Kei gets called up by one of her old friends who once had a crush on Ayana Koji, but was ultimately rejected. She asks if Kei has been dating Ayana Koji secretly. Kei is normally a very good liar, but we can see her unable to do so in this condition, as she's talking to one of her close friends. Kei ends up coming out clean to her friend. Kei tells her that she's been dating Ayana Koji for a while now. However, that's not the only thing that is bothering Maya right now. She's beginning to rethink her entire friendship with Kei. When Maya first fell for Ayana Koji, one of the first few people she told about her crush was Kei. Seeing that very person date Ayana Koji now makes her feel like Kei betrayed her as a friend and made a boyfriend that she knew a friend of hers loves. Despite feeling betrayed, Maya can still think rationally. She is well aware of the fact that Ayana Koji rejected her well before anything happened between Kei and Ayana Koji. Yet her emotions overwhelm her rationality, and she ends up slapping Kei. Despite being slapped, Kei acts empathetically, and Maya ends up feeling bad and apologizing. The two keep their friendship strong despite going through this rough patch of sharing a lover. Eventually, The appointed date and time of the meeting with Hosen arrives. Sudo, Ayana Koji, and Horikita arrive first. In his typical gangster fashion, Hosen arrives late. The fourth episode begins with Horikita taking a stand for the same proposal she's been putting forth from the very start. An alliance where the two classes help each other out without any private points involved. As usual, Hosen refuses to listen, and even threatens to leave the meeting by standing up. A simple act like that in a high-stakes deal pressurizes the opposing side, as it makes it clear that they're willing to step away in a heartbeat. Even Nanace tries to talk some sense into him. They tell Hosen that if he continues to play the dictator, eventually someone will drag him out of the school one way or another. There are ways to do that over here, and the person responsible for committing the atrocity can have himself spared by protection points. They're special points that can be used to avert expulsion. The wisest course of action for Hosen would be to consider this deal that Horikita has put forth before him. Hosen acknowledges the brain cells they put into this argument, but still refuses to budge. For him, working on equal footing is simply out of the window. Hosen then goes ahead and makes a remarkably brilliant move on the board. Given the situation, he asks for 1,000,000 private points as collateral instead of a payment. Since the second years are the ones who need help right now, they should be the ones to pay up the amount. However, if the tables were reversed and Hosen would need their aid, he'd gladly return the 1,000,000 private points back. Ayana Koji deduces that Hosen is more than just a musclehead. He has the ability to analyze and decipher a given situation as well. Horikita acknowledges his argument, but stays firm on her proposal and walks away. Surprisingly, Hosen starts to follow them and keeps on pressing for a deal that involves some points going into his pocket. Horikita is in no mood to entertain his nonsense and keeps walking. Yet somehow, he convinces him to stop and reconsider by offering a version of the deal where no private points are involved. He then tells Horikita and her allies to move to a more discreet location where they can further discuss the finer lines of the contract. However, after moving to an anonymous location, he ends up asking for 3,000,000 private points. At this point, Horikita is fed up with his nonsense and loses every slight shred of respect she has for Hosen. Naturally, she begins to walk away, sensing no room for negotiation. But that's when Hosen completely loses it. He charges straight for Horikita, who has her guard down. Thankfully, Sudo manages to help her duck and evade the deadly kick. Sudo then engages in one-on-one combat with Hosen. Unfortunately for him, it turns out to be less a fight and more of a beating, as Hosen is on a completely different level. In fact, he ends a little brawl by literally throwing Sudo away as if he were a kid. Horikita, being the fierce girl she is, also makes a stand and does a better job at fighting than Sudo, but eventually takes a huge hit that ends a fight with her on the losing end of it. For his next trick, Hosen goes as far as to take out a knife from his pocket. He threatens Horikita by telling her that if she refuses to make a deal with him, he'll even go as far as to stab Ayana Koji. Nanace tries to stop him, but his mind was made up. He charges straight for Ayana Koji like a madman, and in that instant, the unthinkable happens. This is the point his entire plan is spoiled. The knife ends up piercing straight through Ayana Koji's hands. This is when Ayana Koji unveils Hosen's true plan. The truth is he never intended to stab Ayana Koji. Hosen planned on stabbing himself with a knife as a means to frame Ayana Koji and have him expelled. The knife stuck in Ayana Koji's hands is the very knife he bought when he was shopping with Amasawa. She stole it when she came back for her hair tie. Amasawa planned to make sure that Ayana Koji was the only one who bought this knife this month, so it'll be easier to trace it back to him after this brawl. However, Ayana Koji had already suspected this. Remember that one item he had Kei investigate with a clerk? It was about this knife. From the very start, he had never trusted Amasawa and realized that the one true way to spoil their plan would be to get himself injured. This way, it wouldn't matter whose knife it is. The injury on Ayana Koji's hands makes it clear that he's the victim. Ayana Koji now understands the situation, and why Class D of the first years simply refuse to make a deal with them, and why they're all so hell-bent on working together to expel Ayana Koji. It is not just the assassin from the White Room who's after him. It seems like the higher-ups of the school have given a task to some of the first years to have Ayana Koji expelled in exchange for a prize. Hosen is left in a state of shock at how thoroughly Ayana Koji had dismantled his schemes and how effectively he dismantled them in a heartbeat. Nanes confesses that the prize for expelling Ayana Koji is a staggering 20 million private points, but Hosen's plan is pretty spoiled. Now that Hosen has injured Ayana Koji, it's pretty easy to get him expelled, but Ayana Koji considers a different proposal. Firstly, an alliance on equal footing like Horikita suggested, and secondly, Hosen will have to be Ayana Koji's partner for the upcoming joint exam. Hosen finds himself at his wit's end. He praises Ayana Koji and even calls him senpai for his intelligence. He accepts the proposal and simply walks away. Time passes by, and the result of the joint exam comes out. The overall class with the highest score is Class A, second to them is Class C, third comes Class D, and at last is Class B. This exam was also supposed to be a small, close contest between Horikita and Ayana Koji. They were supposed to compare their scores in math, and Ayana Koji takes an undisputed victory by scoring a complete 100. Ayana Koji has a meeting with the acting director, who's making these absurd moves to have Ayana Koji expelled. The only thing the director wants him to know is if Ayana Koji has managed to figure out who the White Room assassin is. Ayana Koji confesses that he hasn't been able to figure that out. The acting director tells him that this is all he wished to know. Ayana Koji also makes another deduction that he tells the director. He tells him that it's pretty clear that the assassin is not following orders and is a loose cannon. Their conversation ends, and Ayana Koji walks away, plotting his next move.